Salamat Siang, and welcome back into season number 3 of the FC Bekasi CIty save as I turn them into the biggest club in Asia. In season number 2, we would strengthen our front line, signing 3 brand new attacking players. We would also be in Liga 1 for the very first time, where we would go on to win our very first Liga 1 title. In today's episode, we're going to go about defending that Liga 1 title, and we'll also have our first crack at the Asian Champions League. Let's find out what happens in Season 3. To kick off Season number 3, we're going to go back to the very beginning. It's the 1st of June 2026. We have not long been crowned champions of Indonesia for the very first time. We're going to have a little look at what's going on at the club. Starting off on the club info page, you can see that our club captain will remain Chihiro Konagoya. I feel he's the perfect, consistent type of character that we need to hold the captaincy, and he has done well in his time at the club, so he will retain the captaincy for this season. Our key player is Owen Silva, a player that we bought in the previous season, and he had a fine first season at the club. And our hot prospect at this point is Adi Moat, a player who we brought through our youth system and has now broken into the first team at the age of just 17. Looking in the top left-hand corner, our reputation, we are still a 1-star national reputation team, and that is fine. We will build that as we get into the bigger competitions. Our finances, though, seem to be on the up. We are now ranked as a 3-star OK finance team. Looking at the training facilities and the youth facilities, they are both still basic, and whilst that is a bit alarming at the moment, as soon as we get that bigger cash flow coming in from those other competitions, it will open up doors where we can start to improve the facilities going forwards. In terms of junior coaching and youth recruitment, they too are poor or basic, and it's something that we're going to have to build on for the future, and just hope and pray that we get 1 or 2 decent youth players coming through when those intakes take place. Looking at the squad for the upcoming season, the squad is running a little bit light on numbers. Now, it does look quite a condensed squad. We do have a number of goalkeepers, we have a number of wide players and defensive midfielders, we have 3 strikers on the books. One area that we are a little bit light on is centre-back and potentially wing-backs, so maybe we are going to go out and try and secure 1 or 2 in those positions. But looking at the team, I don't think we need to massively overhaul anything. Luckily for us, this season, contracts are not an issue. Every single player has a contract that runs at least until 2027. Looking at the finances at the club, though, show that I'm not too sure why we are rated as a OK finance team. We have a balance of 43,000. We have a transfer budget of 84,000. And you can see here that we do run the club quite bizarrely. It does run into financial difficulties at times, and then the board will inject a massive amount of money, 539,000, which we then ran down to 127. We got a bit back after winning the league, but it's now down to 43,000. So once again, we're in that dilemma of, do we go and try and sign a star player with the 84,000 we've got on the transfer budget, or do we look after the cash until we get Champions League revenue? In terms of the wage budget, though, we are absolutely fine. 11,979 spent, 19,000 is the wage budget. So the big dilemma is with the transfer budget. With the money that's there, what kind of players will we sign? And the answer to that question would be 2 players. We have 1 player we have signed who has already joined the club, and we have 1 player who has signed and will be a future transfer. Let's start things off by looking at the player who has already joined, and I'll show you the future transfer in just a second. So the player who has already joined is an American. Well, in fact, both players are Americans. Once again, we have gone down the same route that we went down to sign Owen Silva. This player has come from Mississippi Brilla, and he is Sean Wagner. Looking at his profile and his attributes, you can see that he's going to be perfect at the club. He joins us as a striker, and I think, looking at his record of 32 goals in 73 appearances for Mississippi Brilla, he should set the league on fire. He has 13 for pace, 14 acceleration, 16 for finishing, 18 for determination. I think the biggest problem we are going to have is keeping him at the club, but for this season, we're at least going to get to see what he is capable of in our league. The other player that we have coming into the club in future is Mike Ternari. He's due to join in November. Another American who come from New York City's development team, their academy. He's a right-footed centre-back who has good tackling, he has good heading, good bravery, aggression, good natural fitness. The only thing I would say about him is I would have liked it if he was a little bit more determined, but it's something that hopefully, as he develops into his role at the club, will start to develop along with him. So only 2 signings coming in. We didn't spend a single penny in terms of the money. The squad also, as I did say, was a little bit light. So it was a little bit disappointing we couldn't get 1 or 2 more players in. But definitely for this season, I think that we will have enough to at least defend our title and hopefully have a good run in the Champions League. We would kick off the 26-27 season and the defence of our Liga 1 title on the road at newly promoted Sujara FC. Unfortunately for them, new American striker Sean Wagner would hit the ground running as he scores a hat-trick on his debut in a 3-1 win. Next up would be the visit of Percy Carbo. They would put up a good fight by forcing an equaliser after we took the lead. Goals from Silva and Ramdani, though, would give us 3 more points. We would make it 9 points from 9 to start the season with the demolition of PSPS. Goals from Maciel, Silva and a brace from Wagner would seal a 4-0 victory. If the first 3 league games of the season were plain sailing, game number 4 was definitely the one that caught us out. We would invite Borneo to the Patriot Candrabhaga Stadium and they would beat us 2-0 in front of our own fans. That embarrassment though would not last long. We would go on and win the very next game, beating Persib 2-0. We'd beat Burrito Patera 2-1, Persebaya 3-2. We'd beat Derry United 4-0. We would sweep aside Arima as we demolished them 5-1. That means at this point of the season, we would be top of the league, collecting 24 points from our first 9 games. That's 8 wins, that 1 loss. We would have an 18 goal difference. In terms of some of the stats for the league, Wagner would score 15 goals in his first 9 games. He would have an 8.22 average rating. Owen Silva would have 5 assists on the board, with Dwi Abbas getting 4, and Sean Wagner would have 5 Player of the Match awards. The other thing of note here is that the Champions League Elite group stage had been drawn. We have been grouped with Guangdong United from Thailand, Shanghai Port from China, and Yokohama Marinos from Japan. Certainly not the easiest group in the world. I've seen other groups that have teams that I thought were beatable. These 3 teams, though, might be fierce competition. I do think we're going to struggle, but we're going to give it everything that we've got. Our first taste of Champions League football would be absolutely mental. We would host Shanghai Port and it would finish in a 4-4 draw. This game would have a bit of everything. There were early goals, late goals, equalisers, cards, and to top it all off, the points were shared. Our goals were scored by Maciel, Susanto, and a brace from new boy Sean Wagner. With the league and the Champions League now hotting up, we are about to hit a patch of very impressive form. After the 4-4 draw in the Champions League, we would beat Gresik United 3-0 in Liga 1. In our very next Champions League game, we would have another mental one. We would play Yokohama Marinos and we would draw 3-3. Goals from Abbas, Silva and Wagner, and Alfin got himself sent off. Then, back in league action, we beat Bali United 2-1, PSM 3-0, Bayankara 5-3, Pasita 5-1. We would finally taste victory in the Champions League against Guangdong United as we beat them 3-1 with goals from Susanto, Wagner and Silva. And then we would also beat Persis 3-0 in Liga 1. That means at this point we will have played 17 games. We are on 45 points and we have opened up a 10-point lead at the top of Liga 1. Importantly though, we are in second place in our group in the Champions League, only behind Shanghai Port who have 7 points. We have 5 points from our first 3 games. Yokohama Marinos are right on our tails. We were soon back in league action as we made the visit to Arima. Luckily for us, we would come out on top of a tight 2-1 game thanks to goals from Sean Wagner. Up next in the Champions League, we would welcome Yokohama Marinos. This was a tight game and we would win 1-0 thanks to Ramdani. Next up in the league would be Persik. After some close games, the goal scoring floodgates open once again. We scored 5 as we win 5-2. Goals from Abbas, Mudassir, Konagaya and a brace from Wagner secured us another 3 points. After 23 Liga 1 games, we find ourselves still top of the table. We have now played 23, won 21, drawn twice, have a goal difference of 44. We are on 63 points. The impressive thing there is we have now opened up an 18-point gap to PSM behind us. The other thing that would change at this point of the season is the Champions League. We have now gone through the group stage and we impressively managed to get through by the skin of our teeth. You can see that we finished second in the group behind Shanghai Port. They would get 12 points, we would get 11. And looking at some of the other groups, there are groups where the second place team did not qualify. It means that luckily for us, we got 11 points and that was enough to qualify us for the second round. Our reward for getting through to the second round was a game against Suwon. After the winter break, we were back in league action against Persebaya. Luckily for us, there was no ring rust as we blast past them 6-0. Goals were scored by Maciel, Rinaldi, Hidayat and a hat-trick from Wagner. Following on from that would be the second round of the Champions League. We would be drawn against Suwon with the first leg away from home and a thrilling game would walk away from Korea with a 3-2 win. Goals from Maciel, Wagner and Kohler would give us the advantage. In the second leg, we would repeat the exact same scoreline as we go on to win 6-4 on aggregate. This time, it would be a brace for Owen Silva and a Wagner goal that would take us through to the next round. Our reward for beating Suwon in the second round of the Champions League would be a quarter-final tie against Shanghai Port. Sadly for us, we were overpowered in the first leg as we would lose 2-1. With it all to do in the second leg, we made the trip to China. Against all the odds, we would pull off a shock 1-0 victory. Despite our heroics, it would be heartbreak though, as it was 2-2 on aggregate and we would be eliminated on away goals. Despite our elimination from the Champions League, it was not all doom and gloom. We still had the league and the Indonesian Cup to look forward to. In terms of the league, we are now sat top of the league with 27 games played and 70 points. We have a 13-point gap and a game in hand. In terms of the Piala Indonesia, we are through to the semi-finals where we would face off against PSPS. Just as we were about to get to the business end of the season, along comes the bombshell news that our board decided to sell our best player. Sean Wagner would now be playing for Atlanta United after the board received an offer that they could not refuse. In fairness to Sean Wagner, he was probably a step above us anyway, but we didn't even get to keep him for a season. Look at some of the numbers that he managed to put up. So in his time at Bekasi, he would play in 34 games and he would score 46 goals. If we go into the career stats view, you can see at the bottom here, he would play 51 times and score 64 goals in Indonesian football. He's going to be an absolutely massive miss for us, but he's an absolute steal for Atlanta United. Despite us losing our best player, we would still go on to add our first silverware of the season as we would come out on top against Persija in a two-legged affair in the Indonesian Cup. That means that we have added a third trophy to the trophy cabinet. We have now won Liga 2, Liga 1 and the Indonesian Cup. With the team still reeling from the news of Sean Wagner's department, our team looked a little bit short on confidence and we could only manage a 1-1 draw in the first leg of the playoff against PSPS. In the second leg of the semi-final though, we would come out all guns blazing. Goals from Alfin and a brace from Silva helped fire us into the playoff final as we would win 4-3 on aggregate. The playoff final would be another two-legged affair against PSM. The first leg would be away from home as we managed to gain the upper hand with a 2-1 win. Goals from Silva and Dowd secured the game. In the second leg, we had the home support behind us and that would help us go on to repeat the score from the first leg. We would win the game 2-1 and over the two legs we would win 4-2 on aggregate. For the second season in a row, we would be crowned champions of Indonesia and would ensure that we would have another crack at the Champions League in season number 4. After our trophy lift and us celebrating winning Liga 1 for back-to-back seasons, the last thing to do is have a look at the season review and start to show you some of the prep work for season number 4. Kicking off with the season review then, our 2 trophies are proudly on display there. We have our Liga 1 title for the second season in a row. We also have our Indonesian Cup on display. Let's look at the new arrivals. So the game is only displaying one new arrival, which is Mike Tenari. Bearing in mind we did sign Sean Wagner and lose Sean Wagner all in the space of a season. That means that Tenari automatically gets our signing of the season. He would go on and play 19 times with 9 further substitute appearances, score 1, assist 1 and have a 6.72 average rating, which I think is a little bit harsh against him because he has played some really good football and I think he's definitely one that will develop into the future. Just a quick look at the transfers out for the season. So Sean Wagner is here, 180,000 we got for him, and he has gone on to only play once and score twice for Atalanta United, but as we showed you, he would score a lot of goals for us. The other player that left the club that we actually didn't pick up on during the season was Yui Ono. We were in the same position. The board got an offer of £86,000 for him and they took it. Going into the season's results then, once again, we are top of Liga 1. We would win the championship and this time around we would win it by 16 points from Persic. Going into the playoffs, we would absolutely smash through all of the season and we have done fantastically well to get another title on the board. In terms of the Champions League, so it was quite a difficult group that we got drawn in, but we put up brave fights against Shanghai, Yokohama and Guangdong through the group stages. We then drew Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, beat them home and away, and then unfortunately we would fall to Shanghai on penalties. In terms of the Indonesian Cup, we would breeze through that all the way to the final where we would beat Persija over 2 legs. Looking then at some of the moments to remember, our biggest win was a 6-0 victory against Persebaya. Our match to remember was the 4-4 draw in the Champions League, which was absolutely mental. And our goal of the season would go to Owen Silva. He would score that in the 3-2 victory against Suwon. In terms of our finances and our reputation, so finally we have taken a step forward. We were previously a 1-star national. We are now a 1.5-star national. We have no new sponsorship deals for the season and no sponsorship deals for the season. In terms of the annual revenue, we have £25,000 worth of sponsorship. We are up in terms of broadcasting, corporate and hospitality, competition prize money. We won nearly £600,000 more, and our match day commercial and retail is also up. In terms of the merchandise sales, our most popular shirts are Silva, Cola, Sutopo, Konagoya and Koyo Maciel. Now it makes you wonder how many shirts we would have sold had Sean Wagner been here till the end of the season. Owen Silva was there. In terms of how we lined up across the season, so Setho goalkeeper, Ramdani, Rinaldi, Sutopo and Abbas, Kola, Agung and Konagoya. Then it's Silva, Wagner and Maciel up the top. I think it was devastating what those 3 could do in the final third of the pitch. In terms of the accolades this season, we did not win Manager of the Year. Strange one. We did win Manager of the Month for September and October. And then in terms of the club awards, Owen Silva was the Fans Player of the Season. He was also the Young Player of the Season. Mike Tenari got Signing of the Season by default. Goal of the Season went to Owen Silva. He also got Top Goal Scorer, Most Assists, Most Player of the Match Awards and Highest Average Rating, which is a little bit of a shame because it would have all gone to Sean Wagner had he still been at the club. Because as you can see on the right hand side, 64 goals in a single season, 46 in terms of league goals, 4 goals in a single game a couple of times. Owen Silva would get the most assists by player in the season with 23. Wagner most player of the matches with 17. Then we would get highest transfer fee received. The actual fee was 134 up front. And then we will get the other 46 in add-ons and future fees. Quickest goal, 16 seconds. And youngest ever player was Mohamed Pernoan at 15 years, 326 days. So Bekasi came along, better than anybody expected, carried the form from mid-season all the way to the title. Looked quality when going in the middle of the year. Few will have expected this outcome, but we have won both competitions. So in terms of the timeline, so Wagner broke the record with 9 goals in a single campaign for the Indonesian Cup. We then won the Liga 1. We had a record points haul with 85. Wagner scored 46 goals in a single season, breaking that record. Wagner made an instant impact in winning the Indonesian League 1 Player of the Year award the same season he joined the club and left the club. And Dwi Abbas showed great work being done in the youth setup by winning Indonesian League 1 Young Player of the Year. And then obviously Wagner here, 64 goals in a single season. Fantastic. The problem there is, how are we going to replace those goals going into season number 4? So looking at the finances firstly, thanks to our success in the Champions League and also winning back-to-back titles, we now have an overall balance of 1.3 million and a transfer budget of 328,000. With that being a lot healthier, we can go out and really start to invest in the playing squad. I have a feeling we're going to need to, because we were a bit thin anyway, and that has carried on throughout the season. Now losing 2 key strikers means we're going to have to replace them. We're also going to have a look at things as we go forwards. I think there is definitely room for improvement across the board. We've also, in good news for the club, we've managed to secure all the contracts of all the players at least until the end of the next season. And I think we're definitely going to have a look at a goalkeeper, a striker or 2, and probably a central defender or a defensive midfielder. In an ideal world, we'll sign all of them. So that is it for season number 3. Once again, we have added a Liga 1 trophy to our cabinet and the Indonesian Cup for the very first time. Going into season number 4, we're going to be a 1.5-star national reputation team. Our finances are secure now. We have a 2-star training facility and a 2-star youth facility, as we have invested a bit of money going across the season in those. And yeah, pretty much everything the same down here. Konagai will continue as captain. Owen Silver is our key player. And Mohamed Pernawan, as you just heard, became our youngest ever player at the age of 15. But going into season number 4, everything is positive. We have to try and go one better than the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And fingers crossed if we can go even all the way and win the competition. Right then, that's it for season number 3. That one's in the history books. We are going to be moving on to season number 4 in the next episode. Before I go, please don't forget to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel. There'll be plenty of content coming out in the coming months. For this one though, I'm going to leave it there. Big thank you for watching. See you on the next episode.